Thank you for hosting me, and sorry for not being able to come to be with you in person for so many commitments, actually. This presentation is about a topic conducted by, or a research study, small study conducted by one of my students on BIM for temporary facilities or works in construction. And as we know that temporary works normally are kind of essential parts of every construction project. And the paper actually focused on one of these temporary facilities, scaffolding systems. The choice actually of this specific system is actually due to its frequent use in most construction projects and its high impact on safety measures on sites. So the aim of the paper is to identify how BIM can streamline the design process for different temporary facilities on construction sites. It has been reported in many industry reports and as well in the National Access and Scaffolding Confederation reported, for a couple of years ago that there are about over 90 accidents relating to scaffolding alone in 1 year period. So it shows that the importance of focusing on this, and as well on the other side that we all noticed that the advancement in BIM technology and use in the industry, which have streamlined many of the processes in the industry. However, the temporary works, especially scaffolding, are not yet benefit from the reward of many technologies related to BIM like 4D and 5D. So the focus of the study was try to explore this in much more detail. If we can say here, if we talk about the temporary works versus permanent works, depending on as well on the type of contract or procurement process and traditional process, usually both are actually dealt with almost in similar way. However, there are so many differences as we have investigated, and while in this type of traditional design situations, usually temporary work just follow the same process of permanent work design, just change the type of material used in terms of, for example, using aluminum instead of steel, using timber instead of concrete, these sort of things. However, if we say if we talk about design and build projects, usually the contractor is responsible for all the design process, while in the traditional one, the client actually usually assign the structural engineers or the design team without much focus on the design of temporary works at the beginning, and this will actually create this type of little type of collaboration or no collaboration at all between the design team for temporary work and the permanent work designers, which cause some troubles in some projects. This lack of early collaboration between the design team can lead to a number of issues on site, with essential temporary elements being omitted from construction scheduling, causing delays, for example, or maybe reworking or resetting of the different temporary facilities on site. And also, it was reported as well, the temporary works register, TWR, that are required to be completed are often updated after the work has been started, and in some cases when the work has been completed altogether. And this as well is a kind of problem for the industry, as even a slight changes or alteration in the location or use of any temporary facility can greatly affect the level of risk associated with it. So there are little literature actually, if we talk about the design process related to BIM, or with BIM for temporary facility, very little literature available compared with the work we do on permanent work. The emphasis is actually need to be maybe we should be more aware of that, and open some kind of windows for work or for designing the tools for temporary works. When we see this example, I mean the way or the current way of dealing with temporary facility and design, usually we don't have so much or so many BIM objects as we compare to a permanent work. In many cases, those who try to model temporary work or facilities at the early stages or design stage, they don't have very much experience or enough experience to do that. So they just, as you can see here in this example, they block off an area and that will contain the proposed temporary structure and leave all details later to a later date by some experienced temporary engineers or so, temporary work engineers to follow the information if they need it. So of course this is always the case. And even if that happened, usually the information or the model developed is not rich enough with full information, especially about the health and safety issues related to the temporary facility. And also one of the key issues that the temporary facilities is affected too much by the workflow and the progress of the work, and you may need to change location of any facilities on site, and this will affect the health and safety so much and the risk of accidents to happen. So there are so many, you can say, scenarios that should be considered, especially for temporary facilities, scaffolding or any other as well. So there is a need to focus on this or to give more kind of attention to designing tools to help the design team to include or incorporate temporary facilities with their original design. There are, in the paper, we actually reviewed 3 key examples of research, which was selected mainly because they have not only proposed a framework of designing temporary facilities using BIM technology, but also they developed something like a model or a tool that can be used like the example that you can see now on this slide. However, majority of these models developed actually are quite limited somehow, and it is not fully automated. I mean, it means quite a lot of manual input from designers. So if you change the geometry, for example, of the permanent work, you need to manually go back, and there is no link between the permanent work and the temporary work. So it needs a lot of kind of manual input from the designers, which sometimes becomes difficult and takes time. And of course, sometimes it just happened on site without changing the model itself. So the idea is to maybe advance this type of technology to make it more BIM compatible. So this research, for example, it is one of the, you can say, most advanced ones, which have some automated functionality to rearrange the scaffolding elements based on the changes or the change of the project stages itself, the progress in construction and the achievement of certain tasks. So this type of research is, you can say it is much more advanced than others. We have compared here the 3 research reviewed with one of the most well-known, or we can say more known applications, Smart Scaffolder, which is a commercial application that is BIM-based, and it is actually have some kind of higher functionality than the others. And this comparison is made by a number of experts who looked at 4 criteria to compare functionality, which is the adequate functionality for an experienced designer to allow them to reap the benefits of them without having to improve temporary works designer at the design stage. So a kind of how easy the software or the application can be used by non-experienced designer to design temporary facilities.
Sorry to interrupt there. You have 1 minute, Ibrahim. Okay.
The geometry parameter is the automation or for creating objects, BIM objects, and safety to capture as much safety information as possible, and the quality relate to the rich model, developing a rich model that can be used for 4D and 5D simulation. So yeah, I can see here there's some variety of between these different applications. The main conclusion we reached at here, as you can see, that there is still need for investment in this field or in this area of BIM development, and the lack of collaboration between temporary and permanent works designers actually is quite obvious in many projects we looked at. Still, so many functionalities done by manual process and inefficient safety register that's not completed on time. The main idea is that we actually have a kind of further work to be done on this study. That the next stage will be to validate this study first by doing some kind of more interviews with the specialist contractors to gather more opinion on what functionality they want to have to see on this type of applications. In addition to the potential of using AI to be involved as well in design of these facilities, especially if you want to have so many changes during the progress of the project. So this is briefly what we covered in this short study, and thank you for listening.